Civil rights leader the Rev. Jesse Jackson dies at age 84. Jackson, a protege of the Rev. Martin Luther King Jr., led the civil rights movement for decades, ran for president twice. Chicago AP, the Rev. Jesse L. Jackson, a protege of the Rev. Martin Luther King Jr., and two-time presidential candidate who led the civil rights movement for decades after the revered leader's assassination, died Tuesday. He was 84. His daughter Santita Jackson confirmed that her father died at home, surrounded by family. As a young organizer in Chicago, Jackson was called to meet with King at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis shortly before King was killed, and he publicly positioned himself thereafter as King's successor. Jackson led a lifetime of crusades in the United States and abroad, advocating for the poor and underrepresented on issues from voting rights and job opportunities to education and healthcare. He scored diplomatic victories with world leaders, and through his Rainbow PUSH coalition, he channeled cries for black pride and self-determination into corporate boardrooms, pressuring executives to make America a more open and equitable society. ND, when he declared, "I am somebody," in a poem he often repeated, he sought to reach people of all colors. "I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be young, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody," Jackson intoned. It was a message he took literally and personally, having risen from obscurity in the segregated South to become America's best-known civil rights activist since King. "Our father was a servant leader, not only to our family, but to the oppressed, the voiceless, and the overlooked around the world," the Jackson family said in a statement posted online. "We shared him with the world, and in return, the world became part of our extended family." Fellow civil rights leader the Rev. Al Sharpton called his mentor a consequential and transformative leader who changed this nation and the world. He kept the dream alive and taught young children from broken homes, like me, that we don't have broken spirits, Sharpton wrote on Facebook. A giant has gone home. Despite profound health challenges in his final years, including a rare neurological disorder that affected his ability to move and speak, Jackson continued protesting against racial injustice into the era of Black Lives Matter. In 2024, he appeared at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago and at a city council meeting to show support for a resolution backing a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. "Even if we win," he told marchers in Minneapolis before the officer whose knee kept George Floyd from breathing was convicted of murder, "it's relief, not victory. They're still killing our people. Stop the violence. Save the children. Keep hope alive." Calls to action, delivered in a memorable voice. Jackson's voice, infused with the stirring cadences and powerful insistence of the Black church, demanded attention. On the campaign trail and elsewhere, he used rhyming and slogans such as, "Hope not dope," and "If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it." To deliver his messages, Jackson had his share of critics, both within and outside of the Black community. Some considered him a grandstander, too eager to seek out the spotlight. Looking back on his life and legacy, Jackson told the Associated Press in 2011 that he felt blessed to be able to continue the service of other leaders before him and to lay a foundation for those to come. "A part of our life's work was to tear down walls and build bridges, and in a half-century of work, we've basically torn down walls," Jackson said. "Sometimes when you tear down walls, you're scarred by falling debris, but your mission is to open up holes so others behind you can run through." In his final months, as he received 24-hour care, he lost his ability to speak, communicating with family and visitors by holding their hands and squeezing get very emotional knowing that these speeches belong to the ages now. His son, Jesse Jackson Jr., told the AP in October, a student-athlete drawn to the civil rights movement. Jesse Louis Jackson was born on October 8 in Greenville, South Carolina, the son of high school student Helen Burns and Noah Louis Robinson, a married man who lived next door. Jackson was later adopted by Charles Henry Jackson, who married his mother. Jackson was a star quarterback on the football team at Sterling High School in Greenville, and accepted a football scholarship from the University of Illinois. But after he reportedly was told Black people couldn't play quarterback, he transferred to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, where he became the first-string quarterback, an honor student in sociology and economics, and student body president. Arriving on the historically Black campus in 1960, just months after students there launched sit-ins at a whites-only diner, Jackson immersed himself in the blossoming civil rights movement. By 1965, he joined the Voting Rights March King led from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. King dispatched him to Chicago to launch Operation Breadbasket, a Southern Christian leadership conference effort to pressure companies to hire Black workers. Jackson called his time with King a phenomenal 4 years of work. Jackson was with King on April 4, 1968, when the civil rights leader was slain at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Jackson's account of the assassination was that King died in his arms, gone but not forgotten. Freedman's Cemetery represents Black Dallas past. Future with his flair for the dramatic, Jackson wore a turtleneck he said was soaked with King's blood for 2 days, including at a King memorial service held by the Chicago City Council, where he said, "I come here with a heavy heart because on my chest is the stain of blood from Dr. King's head." However, several King aides, including speechwriter Alfred Duckett, questioned whether Jackson could have gotten King's blood on his clothing. There are no images of Jackson in pictures taken shortly after the assassination. Jackson broke with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to form Operation Push. Originally named People United to Save Humanity, the organization based on Chicago's South Side declared a sweeping mission from diversifying workforces to registering voters in communities of color nationwide. Using lawsuits and threats of boycotts, Jackson pressured top corporations to spend millions and publicly commit to diversifying their workforces. The constant campaigns often left his wife, Jacqueline Lavinia Brown, the college sweetheart he married in 1963, taking the lead in raising their 5 children, Santita Jackson, Yusef Dubois Jackson, Jacqueline Lavinia Jackson Jr., and to future members of Congress, U.S. Representative Jonathan Luther Jackson and Jesse L. Jackson Jr., who resigned in 2012, but is seeking re-election in the 2026 midterms. The elder Jackson, who was ordained as a Baptist minister in 1968 and earned his Master of Divinity in 2000, also acknowledged fathering a child, Ashley Jackson, with one of his employees at Rainbow PUSH, Karen L. Stanford. He said he understood what it means to be born out of wedlock and supported her emotionally and financially. Presidential aspirations fall short but help keep hope alive. Despite once telling a black audience he would not run for president because white people are incapable of appreciating me, Jackson ran twice and did better than any black politician had before President Barack Obama, winning 13 primaries and caucuses for the Democratic nomination in 1988. For years after his first failed attempt, his successes left supporters chanting another Jackson slogan, "Keep hope alive." "I was able to run for the presidency twice and redefine what was possible. It raised the lid for women and other people of color," he told the AP. "Part of my job was to sow seeds of the possibilities." U.S. Representative John Lewis said during a 1988 C-SPAN interview that Jackson's 2 runs for the Democratic nomination opened some doors that some minority person will be able to walk through and become president. Jackson also pushed for cultural change, joining calls by NAACP members and other movement leaders in the late 1980s to identify black people in the United States as African Americans. To be called African Americans has cultural integrity. It puts us in our proper historical context, Jackson said at the time. Every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some base, some historical cultural base. African Americans have hit that level of cultural maturity, Jackson's words. Sometimes got him in trouble. In 19, he apologized for what he thought were private comments to a reporter, calling New York City Hymietown, a derogatory reference to its large Jewish population. And in 2008, he made headlines when he complained that Obama was talking down to black people in comments captured by a microphone he didn't know was on during a break in a television taping. Still, when Jackson joined the jubilant crowd in Chicago's Grant Park to greet Obama that election night, he had tears streaming down his face. "I wish for a moment that Dr. King or slain civil rights leader Medgar Evers could have just been there for 30 seconds to see the fruits of their labor," he told the AP years later. "I became overwhelmed. It was the joy and the journey. Influence at home and abroad." Jackson also had influence abroad, meeting world leaders and scoring diplomatic victories, including the release of Navy LT Robert Goodman from Syria in 1980, as well as the 1990 release of more than 700 foreign women and children held after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. In 1999, he won the freedom of 3 Americans imprisoned by Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic. In 2000, President Bill Clinton awarded Jackson the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor. Rest in peace, legend.